Okay, so welcome to the part two of this course. Now we're going to talk about more about what HTML tags are and how we can use HTML. In previous session, I talked about in detail what HTML is and what the fundamental concepts of HTML are. If you have understood it, now it will be more easy for us to follow this HTML. So if you're here directly and you haven't seen the previous session, do go and visit the previous session. I will provide the description and information. So just scroll back and do find this previous session so that you understand the fundamentals of this course. Okay, so which is basically HTML introduction and the fundamental concepts when I talk more detail how it goes. Now let's just jump in and try to cover as many tags as we can in this video. So the first thing that this W3 school mentions is the editors. Now HTML can be written in any editor from Notepad to VS Code to brackets or anywhere you want. So you can write your HTML in your web pages, sorry, in your Microsoft Word, Notepad, text editor, Notepad++, anywhere where you can write a text. Basically, you can write this code. Okay, and we have talked about the basic structure of this code already. So what you can do is write it anywhere you want. You can write it in Notepad. I typically use VS Code, so we used this in the previous example as well. So this is much easier and much nicer to control, and there's many things that we can do here. We can have a live view as well, which basically means that you don't have to refresh and save the page every single time. As soon as you write and save, the code is updated automatically. So this is a much easier and wonderful way to do it. So I recommend we using VS Code. It's a wonderful tool and you can download and install it free of cost. So that's why it becomes even more wonderful. Okay. So once this is done, let's move on to understanding the basic structure of HTML. So now let's talk about basics of HTML. Okay, so what basic HTML is that in this chapter, it will tries to discuss with few basic examples what HTML and what document is. We have already talked about this basics in our fundamentals video as well. So if you have seen that, wonderful. If you have not seen it, go watch this first part of HTML in which I have talked about all these basic fundamentals as well. So, but let me go through this again very quickly. What it is saying is that we have something called HTML document. Okay, it says that HTML document must start with a document type declaration. Now, I don't agree with this. It says must. It should. There's no must in HTML. Okay, HTML is a very context-free language, very rule-free language. It doesn't have so much strict rules. So you can begin your HTML document without this. It will work fine, no problem at all. However, it's recommended. So in fact, I would use the word recommended here, that all HTML documents are recommended to start with. Why recommended? Because first, if I don't write it, my document would still run. I have tested it. It runs on Android, it runs on iOS, it runs on Apple, Windows, everywhere. The document runs fine. But it's recommended because now with so many different browser types, from Edge to Microsoft to Firefox, Google, and so on and so forth. Then devices, each device is its own operating system. Each operating system has its own behaviors. So to ensure the consistency and to ensure that the browsers on every single device on the world understands your web page clearly, we follow these basic guidelines. Okay, I don't even dare to use the word rule. So we say follow this basic guideline, be relaxed, but it's a good idea to use this thing because it's going to tell the browsers that the document that you are going to load is type HTML. Because a browser can show many documents, and because nowadays on internet there are so many different file formats and so many issues with malwares and everything, so letting the browser know what it's trying to do is always the best and easiest thing. Okay, so do follow that. So it's recommended that you use this document metadata, telling the browser that hey, I'm using an HTML. Okay, so this document type declaration represents the document type. It helps the browser to display the web pages correctly. It must only appear once. That's the key thing. Okay, so don't try to repeat it again and again. It usually is recommended to have again at the top of the statements. So this document type declaration is also not case sensitive. Okay, so it's not a case sensitive, so it can be full, small, or large, doesn't really matter. It is what we call an HTML5 standard. So that's, I mean, from HTML5 fifth version that we are using nowadays, this is something of a that do use it. If you use it, fantastic. Don't use it, the page would load fine. Don't worry about that. Okay, but again, recommend it. Then we have something called headings. Okay, so the HTML headings are defined with the tag h1 to h6. So every time we write a heading, we write h1 to h6. This becomes my heading text. So let's explore this. So what we do now here is we have written a simple code. Okay. And if we come here, So what this code says that we have HTML, document type HTML. We wrote an HTML body C. Even they don't have written the head tag because it works fine. So HTML has no rules. You can follow along. So we wrote body because we want to display the content here in the body. And then this is H1, H2, H3, H4. So H is basically for heading. H1 means a large heading size. H2 means smaller from H1. H3 means smaller from H2, H4, H5, H6. So respectively, we get different heading sizes. The way the tag work, we start a tag, we write content in the middle, and then we close the tag. Okay, so this is what H1, H2, H3 does. Heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. So now we're telling a browser, create a heading 1, create a heading 2, create a heading 3, create a heading 4, create a heading 5, create a heading 6. So heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, heading 5, heading 6. Similarly, we talked about paragraph tags as well. Again, these are discussed in detail in later sections as well. So don't worry about that. So these are for different tags. So in other words, we have link tag as well. Okay, so we link tag is allows us to create a link between pages. So if I click on the code, what the way we use it, we use an anchor tag or link tag. We say a tag starts, and then we give it attributes. So now what we've written here is something called attributes. Okay, what are attributes? Attributes are like additional instruction to your code. It's telling our browser some additional piece of information. That this is supposed to be a link, but when this is supposed to be a link, but when I click on it, what should happen? So we say that when I click on it, you're supposed to take me to this website. So once I click on this, it will take me to W3 website. So this is how we create a link. So every link that you see here, every option you see here is basically using an anchor tag at the back, and there's this simple code here. Every link in the world, every link that even if I use a try to yourself, it's basically pointing me to this particular web page. It's just a link here, a tag. Then we have images tag, and again, so for insert an image, again we use an image tag. So if I try it here yourself, you come here, see this, we have an image. How do we insert an image in a web page? So these are all different images you see here. We just use this image img tag. That's it. Then we give it some additional attributes. So these are additional attributes like a metadata. Okay, so these attributes define that here's the path of my image. I've saved the image in my local folder. You can access it. Alternate is an alternate text that if image cannot be shown, show me this text. What is supposed to be the width of the image? What is supposed to be the height of the image? So we have given it some additional properties in what we call attributes in HTML, defining something about my image. Okay, so notice now what has happened. To give headings, we write a heading tag. To write paragraph, we write a paragraph tag. To create a link, we create a link tag. To write images, we give image tag. Similarly, this is what the entire HTML is. Every single thing that we do basically uses these tags. Okay, and this is what we need to understand. So let's move to the next section now. Okay, let's talk about HTML elements. What HTML elements are. Okay, so I think I've talked all about this in previous session as well. So if you have not seen my previous videos, this is all what I have already talked about, like going into every single detail of this starting and ending tag and what is that HTML is not case sensitive and everything. So this three basically goes inside this one lecture. Yeah, let's talk about something called HTML attributes. What are HTML attributes? HTML attributes provide additional information to the tag, like extra and piece of information that help us to understand some more features or add more features to your existing tag. Okay, so HTML, almost all HTML tags can have an attribute to it. Okay, and then they also share attributes. So it's not that each attribute is specific to only a specific tag. Some of them are, but you can actually share. So for example, width and height are there. You can use it for thing, name, ID attributes are there. We'll talk about that later on. But you can have same attributes used in multiple different tags. The basic idea is here. So attributes provide additional information. So every attribute that you use has an additional information to it. Attributes are always specified at the start tag. Okay, so they are always recommended. Again, recommended because ending tag is supposed to close, so it won't have any effect. So if you use there, it won't give you error, but it won't have any effect to it. So we always prefer to use the attributes with the starting tag. Attributes usually come in name and value pairs. So basically what attributes are, that we write attribute name is equals to and the value within inverted quotations. That's the typical syntax of how we write the attributes within the tag name. For example, we have an anchor tag. So it's supposed to create a link for us. However, when we click on this link, what should happen? We're telling it that user, when your user clicks on this link, I want you to take me to this website. To do that, we use an attribute called hrefs, hyperreference. Hyperreference is basically again an attribute. Hrefs means that this creates a hyperlink. So when user clicks on it, it will jump to this particular URL. So this becomes my name of the attribute is equals to and the value of the attribute. Okay, so this inverted quotations define the value. Similarly, we have an image tag. Each image tag has an attribute called src. So if you don't use src, basically the image won't be loaded. So if I have an image here, and if I remove the src from here and run the code, there is no image here. Because image tag is there, it tells browser that I want an image here, but which image? So this src is like the source. Okay, so this source is equals to and the path of your image. So once we do that, hit run, now we get an image. Similarly, we have a width and height attributes. These are again attributes. The name of the attribute is equals to the value. The name of the attribute is equals to the value. This is what basically this is all telling us. Okay, so we use width and height as well. We can use alternate attribute as well. So alternate attribute is for images, most commonly used for images. It means that in case if I don't find an image, we use this text as an image. Second, for example, again, we come here and let me just click on this try yourself example. Let's try this example out. So we run this code and we have an alternate attribute. What happens if I remove this src? Control X, run this code again. Now you see this, there's a broken image icon with an alternate text. This is something commonly we have seen many times across websites. Some links are broken, images can't be loaded. What happens? Shows me a basic text. This alternate indicates that if the image is not loaded for whatever purpose, maybe bandwidth issues, maybe path is not there, maybe file was deleted or anything, instead of an image, now show me at least what this image was about. The user can know. Second, it also helps in metadata, what this image is about. But it helps the search engine search certain images. So when we search for an image, basically the search engines look for these alternate metadata text. This alternate will tell me that what this image is about. Okay, so this is basically whole idea behind it. When we use this image, click run, now we get this image. This is what again an alternative attribute basically that's used here. Okay. Similarly, one of the common and wonderful attribute we use is called style. We use a style attribute is equals to and then we give a css in between. So this is actually a css code. Okay, we use this css to create the designs, the style within our html. So by default, html is very simple, very boring. It's not colorful, it doesn't have much style to it. But when we use css, we give it life, we give it more color, we give it more information. To do that, we use this inline css where we use style is equals to and the color information. Okay, and then we have a language attribute. This language attribute is used typically with html. Okay, so this html is going to now tell that browsers that the language used in this is supposed to be English. If you're using French, you can use fr. If you're using Spanish, sp, or Chinese, ch. So different languages have a different abbreviation codes, and if your website is using a specific language, then you need to tell your browser that my HTML has this specific language. This is again not compulsory, but if you are using it, then it's recommended. Okay, so we use this tag. So it can be, for example, in this case, en US, en UK, or en, for example, in general, whatever you want to use. So there's different variations of English as well. So we can use that. Okay, so language is again another attribute is equals to value that tells in HTML. Then the next attribute we use is called title. We specify a paragraph. With paragraph, for example, I have a paragraph. This is a paragraph, but we give it a title. What this becomes a tooltip. So let me show you what this does exactly. Okay, so I have this heading and I've given a title here. Then I've created a paragraph and then we have given a paragraph title here. What happens now is that physically doesn't do anything. We can't see anything. But as soon as you hover your cursor over a title or any of this component, basically you see this a pop-up appearing, tooltip appearing, even with the paragraph. This is what this title does. It creates this pop-up for you automatically. No written. All you did was just add this little attribute called h2, have this title to it, and see this pop-up appearing. So you can add this title to any attribute or any tag. Sorry. Okay, so in this case, we have added the same title to h2. We have added the same title to paragraph. We can add the same title to any number of tags that we use. So if I have an image, I can use that. So for example, let me copy this image here, Control C, come back here, and let's just paste this code here, and then I can add the title here. TITLE title is equals to bracket star bracket close, and I can write this, that girl in a jacket. Control C, Control V. Let me run this code. Here we are. And now as soon as I hover the cursor over it, see this, there's a tool there, girl with a jacket. So any tag that you use can have this title attribute with it. As soon as you write it, you get a tooltip. So this is what we mean by adding attributes. When we use attributes, we are giving more functionality to it. Okay, we suggest always use a lowercase attributes. So HTML basically says that use a lowercase attributes. Do not go for capital letters, even though you can. But again, now here it says, however, this W3C recommends lower attributes. What is W3C? It's a W3C standard, worldwide consortium. So because HTML is so error-free and case-sensitive, not error-free, and you can mix and match, so it created a problem a lot. It created the problem of coherency and understanding the code. So there's a consortium, group of people, old guys, they just sit together and said, this is what you're supposed to do, man. And so we end up doing that particular thing. Okay. So W3 consortium tells you use the small letters. So you gotta use small letters. That's it. So this is a good practice, small letters, and this is a bad practice where inverted quotations have been put up. Always use inverted quotations as a value. Again, that's something that's most important because it will create more problems than solve it. So do ensure that you followed that. Again, here title about W3 school sees that it makes so much confusing that what's happening. So if you don't use inverted quotations, it creates more problem here. So in this example, again, it's using title, but it assumes that this is a single word, and space would basically mean now you're using another attribute and it won't understand it. So it creates a problem with that. Single or double quotation marks, again, this is a debatable thing. You can, however, use both quotation marks in HTML. You can use single quotation and double quotation. However, in case if you want to put a single quotation within your own statement, then you use a double quotation outside and use a single quotation inside. So if I use this example, in this case, for example, this paragraph, John with double quotes, and if I run this code here, see this, title, John with double quotes, the shotgun to it, it's double quotation marks, and then now John has with a single quotation marks. Meaning that if you want to use a quotation within a quotation mark, you just switch it. So in this case, what we have done is we have used a single quotation outside. Everything is inside a single quotation marks. Because I want this text to be in double quotations, so I use it here. Now, the way it would work is that it will take this John, it would see this, this is a single quotation, it will work fine. So if I don't use this, for example, let me use this thing here. Don't use this double quotations, run code, it's fine. If I come here, the John shortcut Nielsen, normal, works fine. If I use the double quotation marks here, double quotations here, and double quotations here, hit run button, okay, come here, see this, now we get double quotations, no problem, still we get the title. The title is working fine, okay, so in title you can use single quotations or double quotations. However, in a certain situation where I want this itself to be in a quotation, so do I use single quotation inside it? So if I do that, now I get a single quotations around the shotgun word. But what if I say now I want a double quotations around the shotgun? So we just reverse it. So we say, okay, what you do is you use a single quotations outside. Everything is now inside single quotations. And then here you use double quotations. Oops. Here what you do is you use the double quotation mark. You put single quotations outside, okay, and then you use a single double quotations inside. Now if you run the code, you will find there's a shotgun is in double quotations. Follow. So this is what basically does. In summary, we talked about all HTML elements can have attributes. We talked about that hrefs is an attribute that we use commonly with anchor. It can be used with other tags as well. Do keep in mind. But hrefs basically takes a URL. So wherever we need to include the URL, we use hrefs. We have an SRC. Okay. SRC is basically an attribute for an image. It specifies a path to an image displayed. We talked about width and height attributes. These attributes usually are used with image, which provides the size information for an image. We used an alternative attribute for an image, which basically provides alternative text to an image. If the image is not loaded, the text is displayed. Again, this alternative is also used by browsers and search engines for metadata and searching purpose as well. Style attribute is there. This is something we will be using more commonly in almost every single tag. This attribute is used for adding a CSS style to our boring HTML tags. Style is used to incorporate CSS styles within our HTML. Then we have used a language tag attribute within the HTML tag to define what HTML web page language is. So it's English, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, whatever you're using. We basically tell the browser using this language attribute. Title attribute is just used to add that extra tooltip information to your text. Okay, wonderful. So I hope you understand that. And now in next session, we're going to talk more about headings, paragraph styles, a little bit more, and then all these topics are going to be covered in next sessions. Do keep following me. Leave your comments. Let me know what you think about it so far, what you want to learn, and what other information can we include. Okay, so and then again, subscribe, please. Hit the bell icon. Hit it hard.